Good morning and welcome to Voices Unleashed, where we celebrate the power of the voice and how it shapes our community. I'm your host, Alexandra Babbel, and as a vocal coach and voice therapist and artistic director throughout my career, my profession has led me to the privilege of enjoying Voices Unleashed in this community and beyond. Beside me is my co-host, Nika, Louw, and today our featured guest is Caleb McAlpine. Caleb, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we have a few questions for you, and we're going to start with this one. Can you tell us about your journey as a singer and how you discovered your passion for music?
Yeah, I've written about it to suggest that I was kind of powerless in choosing to become a musician. Both my parents were musicians, and it was just constantly around. They would be playing music, through the
womb. Yeah.
Looking
womb with a view.
I was looking for a word for that anecdote, but yeah, it was constant. It was surrounded me from before I was born, and so I just felt like I didn't have a choice.
Didn't have a choice.
Kind of in your veins.
Yeah. I know your mom and dad, and they are extraordinary people, artistically, and personal friends of mine, actually. And so I really do think that sometimes these things choose you. You don't choose them, for sure. And I mean, why would you choose it? It's hard.
I wouldn't.
Yes, there you go.
It has been a source of frustration for me and others around me.
Yeah, I think we talked about that. It's kind of candy pain. I love it and I hate it at the same time. So you were going to ask about his band name.
Yeah, so your performing name is Common Fires, which I think is genius. Like, it just has a nice ring to it. Where did that inspiration come from? And why not perform just with your name, Caleb?
I did perform under my name for a little bit when I was living in England. And after shows, social media was less well arranged around 2012, or maybe better arranged at the time. I'm not sure, which is worse, really. But people would just add me on Facebook after shows or find me in like professional avenues that I wasn't comfortable with. And so I just knew from that point I didn't want to have my personal name on it right off the top.
Oh, I totally understand that. That's a boundary thing. It's healthy for you. And
or teaching people how to spell.
Yeah.
Because it does start with two consonants in a row, McAlpine.
Oh.
McDonald's helps make that a little more accessible.
We'll make sure we get it right in the show notes. We'll make sure we get that right. So how would you describe the unique qualities of your particular voice? And how do you work on developing it, nurturing it, and also your compositions in that same way?
Mm-hmm. Self-awareness is weird always, I've found. Like the more, understanding how other people perceive you and having glimpses into the way people talk about you when you're not there, it's terrifying. And it's hard to perceive yourself. I find it's very hard to perceive myself in the way that you two might right now, with my voice, even more so. And I've recorded my voice for hundreds of hours, and I've made peace with what that is, and I have the opportunity to try and push it or stretch it in different directions. But at this point, as I am now 30, and I'm a bass vocalist, everything's kind of sunken in and filled up in that zone. And I grew up listening to tenors and like just these Jeff Buckley, wild,
100%,
syrupy, high voices, and just wanted to do that all throughout my youth. And at this stage now, it's just understanding the limitation and the blessing of where my vocal range sits and trying to occupy that space where it feels the most comfortable.
That makes a lot of sense. You would be surprised to know that many, many vocalists come to me as a voice teacher and ask me to make them a different voice, right? Almost every baritone wants to sing in falsetto because that's what's going on. And then the thirds with the female voice, and people are asking that for all the time. And the one musician you're probably both familiar with is Dan Mangan in Vancouver, who's really embraced the baritone quality of his voice.
And very conversational too.
Yes, very, and oh my goodness, very touching, intimate music, but also just at home with himself. And so I think you're saying you're making peace with your voice, and I am saying that from here I admire it so much. There's a natural quality to it, and there's this thing that's so authentic when you're up there that is really compelling, very compelling.
That is the tough thing with the voice as an instrument, though, is that you don't get to really choose how you use it. It kind of chooses how it wants to be used.
100%.
And unlike, everyone could have the same violin and play the same way, but nobody has the same voice as someone else. And you kind of just do have to figure out what works for your voice. what your voice wants to do and just work with that.
100%.
Which can be a little frustrating. Like, I mean, I've always been into like musical theater and wanted to be more of a belter, but that's just like not my voice.
Right.
But there's a lot of beauty in accepting your voice, because that's also just an acceptance of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Even yesterday, I taught a student for the first time and told her that what it is I'm removing the obstacles so I can hear the true nature of your voice.
Mm-hmm.
I am not changing your voice. Your voice is your voice. It's what you're born with. But I'm removing the things that might be obstacles for you. And sometimes we're working too hard because we are trying to be something we're not. But that is metaphorical for life, isn't it? Whoa. So could you share with us a memorable moment or experience when you felt your voice really impacted either you or those around you? Really hard question, because you are a self-deprecating human, and I am asking you to brag a little. So go for it.
My voice, I think it would have been like maybe 3 years ago when I first started releasing music under Common Fires. Everything else I was confident in. Like, I always wanted to be in a band. I always wanted to arrange music, but I moved around so often. I didn't really have the opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had to write and arrange music alone. And I did want to have music with vocals in it, so I had to.
You had to do it yourself,
there.
yeah.
And I think there was just a moment when I first started releasing music where I was expecting people to respond to the songs or to the arrangements or to the lyrics, and so many people were happy to be hearing me singing and singing at the level that I wasn't able to do earlier either.
They were responding to your voice.
Very
Was
strange.
it surprised you?
Yeah, because I wasn't anticipating that.
Oh, wow. This inadvertent success. I love that.
Yeah.
It seems like for you, maybe it was always more about the art and like not so much like showing off your voice, but just being able to like create things, and you just happened to have a voice to do it with. Am I right in that assumption?
I think so.
Yeah.
But that's given me now permission in the material that I'm recording and releasing now to have a little more self-acceptance or celebration of those aspects of
I
it
love
instead
that.
of trying to work around it.
Yeah, no,
Totally.
that's beautiful. I
Fit it
think
in
that's a
somehow.
really strong message for our listeners and for those aspiring artists that are watching us today, that you do have to find your place. You do have to find your place and then embrace it rather than fight it. And I think we can all relate to that. It's a human experience to constantly being looking for validation and fighting that inner critic. And it's the universal struggle of this human experience. So I think you're really helping us when we realize that you step into some, form of success and are slightly surprised by it. Don't you think that's kind of true about all of us?
Yeah.
We all have that little bit of imposter syndrome, and I think it's very charming and totally suitable to be a little bit surprised by your own success. Instead of going, well, bring it. I mean, and this sort of sense of, entitlement is not as attractive to our audiences anyways. But to always be a little bit, oh, you like me.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
good.
if you see someone go up on stage and accept their Grammy, I mean, has anyone ever been like, yeah, I knew I was going to get this? Like, I don't know what the reaction would be to that.
Exactly. So what message or emotions, because we're right here on this subject, what message or emotions do you aim to convey through your music, and how do you ensure that comes across effectively to your audience?
In the way I write and arrange music, I need kind of three things to be accomplished. I need it to be interesting enough for the musicians and the kind of music-loving groups that I enjoyed growing up. So there needs to be a level of something's always subtly changing or modulating in order, even if it's not an apparent hard contrast change, but there's always movement, either in counter melody and rhythm and harmony or in the arrangement itself. That has to be there so I can feel like I would listen to it.
Right.
And then it has to make sense to people listening to it as well, to anyone. Like, I don't want to make anything that's so esoteric or so
It's no longer accessible. Right.
No, because I also don't listen to that. Like, I don't want to make music that I would respect. I want to make music that I would listen to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good.
Because there's so much of that I really do respect, but I also am bad at homework sometimes. And so I want there to be some sort of component where, this holds my hand enough that I know what's going on. It would be really nice. And then a third element, which I won't speak of because I've forgotten it.
I love it.
Yeah, speaking a little more to like the songwriting process, I know every songwriter kind of approaches it differently. Some people start with a melody that pops into their head. Some people essentially write poetry and then put it to music, and then others start with the instrumentation, and the rest kind of flows from there. So how do you go about like building a song?
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, there used to be a point where it was just lyrics first, and that's when I was performing a lot of my own and trying to make sure that, I need to be able to play this perfectly live with just one person. And then I realized I was more interested in releasing music that had a bit more dynamic range, and that it was now possible for me to do that on my own or with a couple other collaborators over time.
Right.
So for like melodic voicings, usually I'll write from the piano first, just it's very tactile and this easy transposition. And cluster harmonies are really nice to like build into vocal arrangements too.
Sure.
Like, I would not think to add, a semitone below my note right there.
Right.
But if I do it on piano, okay, that's great. So that unlocks something for me. And then, rhythm. It'd be rhythm and piano probably largely, but it could happen acoustic, could happen bass, it could happen because I was recording some ice getting stepped on, and I'm like, that's an interesting sample, that becomes a song.
Oh,
That's very
wow.
cool,
That's very interesting. So I actually have enjoyed so much the harmonic component of your music and the colleagues that you work with, particularly your friend Nathan, who has perfect pitch. Hopefully we get him on the show one time. But so beautiful in that as a classical musician, I can sometimes be bothered by intonation challenges and compositional weakness. That sounds really sort of elitist because it is. But but when I heard you and your colleagues singing together, I realized that there is a musical excellence and intelligence that was so compelling to me that it made me now pursue other genres more than I ever have before. So I thank you for that, you specifically. And as I'm going forward and inviting my own students to introduce me to things that I normally wouldn't be interested in because I spent my entire life in the practice room singing classical music. Well, then Nika starts to show me some jazz that she's singing that's really beautiful. Someone else did cabaret the other day. And my whole point is that we would stay vocally healthy while we enjoy the genres that with which we resonate. So that is the principle of my thinking going forward, and you had a strong play in that adjustment. So I thank you for that.
That's very flattering.
Can you walk us through a recent song you wrote and explain the story or inspiration behind it, and then we'll include a link.
Sure. So the most recent vocal performance would be in Leave Space, which is a song that my band Nightshades released 3 weeks ago. We've got an album coming out on May 31st called Producer. It'll be our first full length with Andrew Judah and Sherman, Dylan Ranney, and myself.
Oh my gosh, Andrew Judah, all those, so great. We're definitely going to talk about that show because I think there are still tickets available. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But tell us more about the specific song you were thinking about.
Yes, that song, that's funny because it just came out. I did write it when I was 17, and then I just kind of kept it around. And if something is an earworm for over 10 years, you do your due diligence and you finish it.
It just won't let you go.
No, and it's very passive. Like there's thousands of songs in the vault, but every once in a while you're cleaning out the cupboards and you're like, I need to, I still see that and I still see something in that. And so we got to do that together. And that was fun because everything was recorded live off the floor. And so the vocal experience for me was not running multiple, composite takes of performances or like zoning in on a line. It was just, you got to perform the whole thing. And there's a different energy in that.
Definitely.
And like you can hear the body moving in it in a way. It's not, there's a vocal that can't be done sitting down. I've never done that before. And
wow.
I think there's something kind of so absorbing about that because it's like, you can feel the difference between something that's been produced in a million takes and they had to get it just right and something where you just kind of live through the song. So I really admire that. And then I can't believe you like wrote it when you were 17. I mean, I've like played around with songwriting and I look back at the stuff that I wrote even a year ago and I'm like, there's no way that's ever seeing anyone. But you released a whole like EP, right? Of songs that you wrote when you were 17.
Yeah.
Did you ever have moments when you were like cringing at what you wrote?
I would make like melodic adjustments and there'd be like usually one or two words that I'm like, that needs to be replaced. Like, that's a clumsy, it's a clumsy way to say it. That's very nice of teenage me to think, but I need to massage it a little bit.
Yeah.
But it also gives that person who was writing, that 17-year-old me was writing songs, hoping people would hear them,
Oh yeah,
you know,
totally.
and would be pretty bummed to find out I did nothing with them. So I've also finished a EP for 18,
Oh, cool.
which will be out under the Common Fire's name. Ash's vocal, my partner and collaborator, she's on
We
each one of the
definitely have to get
songs.
Ash on here too. She's
Yeah.
amazing. Perfect pitch. Amazing woman. Beautiful couple. I love when you guys perform together. And after every song, he's rather tall. I don't know if you've noticed. And at the end of every song, she looks up at him with these puppy eyes, and then he looks down and goes, "Good job." And the whole audience is charmed. It's so cute. I just had to tell people. That. That's so funny. Okay, how has your voice evolved over time? You talked about that earlier, that it's just lower and settling.
Yeah, there's a thing about that, right? With
For
the
sure.
maturation of a lower vocal.
For sure.
But yeah, I had to develop a lot of head voice and falsetto control
Mm-hmm.
growing up to accommodate my needs of being a tenor.
Right. And that's all they wanted.
Yeah, that's all I wanted. And so
Yeah.
and power, I wanted power.
Yes.
And now I'm feeling like I don't need any of those things. But I've had lots of time doing them.
Yes.
And so they're in the wheelhouse. I know how it feels,
Mm-hmm.
but I also feel the constraints, like the range is shrinking now. And it's just some
Mm-hmm.
things you don't get to do when you're 21 unless you have
Wow.
the snake oil for that.
Snake oil.
I bet she does somewhere covered.
As an artist, what challenges have you faced in this industry?
Oh, being in it.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like we might need a whole like series of episodes just for that.
Yeah. Perception's part of it too.
Yeah.
Learning to understand the best thing I can do as an artist isn't like it's got to be good. I know I've got a very high standard for what I want it to sound like, but it has to be something that I like.
Yes.
And spending so much time entertaining, how is this going to land with this person? How, like, this person wants things to be weirder. And
Yeah.
This person wants things to
Yeah.
be sweeter. And this one wants more pronouns and less abstract. And like
Oh my goodness.
everything, everyone has
Yeah.
something to say about everything.
Oh my
and
goodness.
understand that.
I was just reading about Brahms yesterday, and Brahms was right in that in between. Some people wanted him to stay more classical.
Yeah.
Others wanted him to be really romantic. And people everybody was complaining.
Oh, yeah.
Haters be hating, I guess that's the thing, right? So
what we
poor
do.
That's exactly
right?
what he said.
Yeah.
Brahms back in the 1800s.
I'm sure he did. That was the phrase, right? Verbatim. Okay, and how have you overcome some of these things to continue pursuing this passion?
It's trust in yourself eventually. Your 10,000 hours are used up or doubled, and you just, there's a term for this. It's about investment. It's about,
What tenacity,
anyways,
investment.
we don't need to spend 5 minutes.
I mean, it's
thinking
looking
about
for
it.
a word, but yeah.
It's just like lost leader. It's not lost leader. I don't know.
We'll think of
You
it.
want return on the investment though.
Yeah.
And unless you've just spent all of your time investing into something with your time and energy,
Oh, like
completely
sunk cost
barren,
fallacy?
sunk costs.
There we
There
go.
you
thank
go.
Yes. Yeah, I have to, but I trust myself enough to know at this point that it's okay that I have to.
Yeah, I
It's
know
not
totally. I
going
get
to-
it. And
It's
so,
not a waste of time.
no,
Important
it's
to me,
not.
And it has become important to others, so it's going to keep going.
When I was just early in my training, one of my professors said, if you can think of anything else to do, do it. But if this is in your blood and you have to do it, go for it. Because an artist, it asks everything of an artist to be an artist. It's not like you punch the clock out at 5 p.m. and now you're just going to rest with your family. It's always with you, always, always with you. And that can be, you think of all the composers and all of the contemporary artists who suffer for their craft. I think you can be counted among them. And that component of the artistry is what is so attractive in a weird way. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm in a mood, I get music that's also in a mood, and then I feel better. I didn't put on the happy clappy music. I put on something that sort of resonated with the mood that I'm in, like yours.
I think it's kind of like feeling like you're not alone. Like someone else has experienced this, and
Yes.
and even like it's very cathartic to like make music that expresses how you're feeling. And sometimes things can't really just be said in words, and you kind of get it out that way.
100%. So here's a hard question for you, not like any of them were so far. How do you see your voice and music influencing the future of this community?
I think that's giving my voice a lot of power it doesn't have. And it's putting responsibility on that I'm trying to avoid by trusting myself and not listening to others. So how that happens, I will be happy to be surprised by.
Oh, what a beautiful answer.
Because I would like that to happen. That sounds great.
I trust that it will. I trust that it will. I do. What advice would you give other young aspiring singers who are looking to find their voice, make an impact throughout their music?
It must be so irritating to say, just keep doing it. Just keep practicing. Spend time on things that you're not good at until you are good at it. And you won't really notice half those differences for years. So if you care about it, just plunk away until you're good at it. And you'll notice when that happens, and when
good.
you can't have imposter syndrome all the time.
I think if it's
just some of the time.
If it's irritating to say that, it's just because people want some sort of magic answer, like this is how to be successful. But it really is just like it really is just like sticking with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Okay, so now let's talk about this album release.
Sure.
We're coming close to the end of this, and we really want our audience to know about your album release. I will be there. Tell us how we can get tickets to that.
Yeah, if you Google Redbird Beer, Red Beer Brewing on their events page.
And the date?
Bar, on May 1st, 7 p.m. The advance tickets are $20.
May 1st?
May 1st. Did I say?
May 1st was passed.
That's
June
why she's
1st.
here. June 1st.
Yeah, so June 1st.
That's why we have her here.
Unfortunately,
You see?
the album comes out on May 31st, the day prior.
Okay.
So I've made it hard for this press tour, this flurry, by choosing different months.
Gotcha.
So May 31st, Reducer comes out, and then June 1st, the show will be available.
Cool.
Tickets are online on Instagram and on the Redbird page as well.
Oh, yeah.
And for those who don't know what goes into producing an album, which I guess is most people, like, can you tell us a little bit how much work goes into it? What's the behind the scenes that we don't get to see? Because there's certainly a lot.
Yeah. Andrew Judah would be bearing the brunt of most of that.
We're going to get Andrew on the
producer,
show, too.
Terrific producer, songwriter, vocalist.
Oh, he's amazing.
So the songs themselves would have been workshopped. There's 10. There's probably, I'm going to say, 30 to 40 independent hours for each musician in building and shaping the arrangements and testing them live. And then usually 3 or 4 takes after setting up all the mics and making sure all the levels are happy. And then recording that. So we do perform all together in a room, which is new for all of us who are used to working like hours and hours and hours in our hidey holes, creative nooks. But everything's recorded live off the floor. And then the mixing per song, honestly, we're very particular. So we're looking to get to the point of a mastered version of a song, probably like another 30 hours.
Wow.
And then lots of revisions and sending files back and forth. And there's...
So is it a year? Is it 2 years? Is it 6 months? What is it for you guys?
This album will have taken us, if you don't count like kind of the brainstorming and songwriting and arrangement of it, this will have taken us about 7 to 8 months, which is wildly fast for what we do.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fascinating.
That's very impressive, yeah.
Wow. Hey, Caleb, is there anything you still wanted to say that I haven't asked you about? Anything else you want your public to know?
The third thing was lyrics.
Oh, the third thing was lyrics. Of course, lyrics.
I grew up with a lot of listening to a lot of singer-songwriter music that sometimes the impact was held in those words more than anything, and that the melody was a vehicle for that. So as long as it's covering those 3 things.
Gotcha.
And
beautiful.
Young songwriters, young vocalists, find the thing that excites you most of those 3 even as well. Like for me growing up, lyrics was the thing I'd write first in the journal. And it'd be very like syllabic and metered, and then I'd try and translate it to melody.
Yeah.
And that developed that skill, and then I got bored of that, but I was still good enough to try other things. And so suddenly at the end, strong arrangement, accessibility, and lyrics.
And I think it goes without saying, but I think we said it, that collaborative part of it, that collaboration is probably been a real joy, because I can tell you guys are friends. Like, it's just it's wonderful to watch. So I really want to thank you for this today. But before we close it down, how can your fans reach you?
The best way would be just on Instagram. So that's at Common Fires. No underscore.
That's it. No underscore.
no
Just
underscore.
straight up Common Fires.
Straight up common fires.
Well, thank you so much, Caleb. And thank you, Kelowna Now. Thank you, Nika. We're excited to report that there are some upcoming sponsors for this show. Ooh la la. So let's keep it going. We are so excited to present this to our community. It is my pleasure and my one true love to offer this to you. Voices Unleashed. My name is Alexandra Babbel, and we'll see you at the next episode in 2 weeks' time. Thank you so much.